tax levy, but you can utilize that for tax levy for your bills that you received in September. So that leaves us in our unappropriated fund balance in the neighborhood of $450,000.
Did we cover just about everything you have?
What are some specific examples of the programs that you guys are thinking about?
We will get into that during this next session coming up. So what I'm going to do is proceed into our next session. If you would, just set your green papers aside, and we'll be collecting those and reporting those later. So as we move into the next session, and this is where we're going to review programs. What we want to do is just review where we are currently in terms of the revenue and expenditure picture, again, to set you up for what we're moving into next year. As Barb reviewed, we have a state aid increase of approximately $475,000, is slightly over that. Now, what we've also put into our revenue budget at this point is an additional $150,000 based on $250 million in competitive grants that Governor Cuomo had set aside in his budget. Everything is leaning towards $200 million of that $250 million being redistributed to schools in the form of foundation aid. The minimum a school will get is approximately 1%. Our 1% figure is approximately $140,000, so we've added about $150,000 to our revenue line at the end. We're looking at the other aid formulas, and if you review a state aid projection chart, it carries BOCES aid, transportation aid, building aid. Those are all expense-driven aids, and we expect those to remain the same. We're looking at the loss of $1.168 million in the jobs fund money. That was what I reported earlier on, almost $1.2 million in loss of revenue. And again, as Barb indicated, our sales tax revenue is set to increase by $50,000 up to $3.6 million. So you can see a significant increase, or I shouldn't say increase, but a significant amount of sales tax coming to help fund our district. In terms of the expenses, and here's what we're looking at as our assumptions governing the budget increases for expenses. About $860,000 in increases for salaries throughout the district. The employee and teacher retirement system increase of about $450,000, and the health insurance increase, as Barb said, at 8.5%, $440,000. We expect to have some increases in BOCES. We haven't seen those figures at this point, but you'll also see where we've reduced some of our BOCES expenditures, so that has to be determined. And a special ed cost increase of approximately $134,000. That's what we're projecting for, mainly an increase in private school tuition for some of our special education students. And looking at what we're attempting to do through our budget reductions, and we're going to review our program, then we're going to review draft 1 and draft 2 reductions for you here. But part of what we've done is taken a very deep look at what programs we offer at Hamburg, and they are significant, and they are something that we take pride in throughout the district regardless of program. So we will have, as you see in the budget, we will have some reductions from a declining enrollment. At the elementary school, we've seen a little bit of reduction in enrollment, and we'll show you those figures and show where some of that decline is. You'll see through these numbers too a couple of areas that are a little bit of a bubble. For next year, we have a pretty significant grade 6 class coming in from grade 5 this year, so we have to increase a teacher at grade 6. So you'll see some of those areas as well that we have. We're going to look at prioritizing programs and look at what our needs are, what the students are signing up for at high schools, in particular from an elective standpoint, and then consider these items as we go through potential reductions. We also need to make sure, if you look at the second large bullet point, New York State has initiated a reform agenda as required by Race to the Top. New York State won Race to the Top funding. A reform agenda has been set in place. That carries significant change in curriculum, instruction, and assessments. We've seen the curriculum in the assessment part. We are now getting into the instructional part that's coming down from the New York State Education Department, required for districts to participate in and to make sure that we're following the guidelines that they're setting forth. And then, as we've said before, we know we can't raise the levy by 12-13% in order to make up the difference, but we also know we can't have $3.5 million reduction in staff and program. So our job is to find the balance in between in terms of what we can support. So in terms of our budget analysis, we're looking at the impact of program and staff, and we're looking at wherever we can find efficiencies to put the efficiencies in place for our budget. Again, as we've indicated in the past, we need to look beyond 12-13 to 13-14 and beyond. A long-term budget planning is a necessity at this particular point in time. And we are analyzing all areas of the budget to determine the impact of reductions and what that impact has on the district mission and its program. And this is, in brief, the mission of the Hamburg Central School. You can find this on our website. I'll just give you a moment to read that and take a look at it. As we've put together the areas in the budget, as we've explored our curriculum, our programs, and what we provide students and the community as well, what we're looking at is we recognize that we have established a culture of excellence and high expectations for our students, and that's a community expectation. We expect these high standards to continue through difficult budget times, so we're in no way looking at reducing our standards or how we perform in terms of our assessments. We know our staff has high performance and achieves the results. We have a very high-performing staff at all levels. We have good community and parent support. We take pride in our student staff and in the district. There is significant support from our alumni and the foundation. And students have become first throughout the years, and decision-making is being based on students. And there. So our program and service areas that I want to take you through, and just again, this is a snapshot of where we are with what we offer students throughout the district, elementary, middle, and high school. This is really the various core programs or areas that we offer, and also services that we provide, whether it's our facility service, technology, food service, etc. You see a combination of curriculum, program, and service here. When we look at the core academic program, this is what we're looking at in terms of our description you'll see throughout the rest of the area that we go through. So we're looking at English language arts, math, science, social studies, etc. When you look over at the right-hand side, languages other than English is low, foreign language is low. English is a second language, so students who come in here that have English as a second language, that speak a foreign language, we have to make sure that they can pass the assessments as well. We have to make sure interpreters are there for them if that's the case, and that we have them, basically gaining proficiency in our language. Balanced literacy is taking place at the elementary level. Science kits at the elementary level, and hopefully we'll see a savings by transitioning to Erie 1 BOCE science kit provisions this year instead of going to the Erie 2 provisions. So you see a various amount of issues in our core academic program. In our special education areas, we provide the spectrum of services that's required by New York State, and we provide an excellent program for students with special needs. We have classes of 611, 1211, and 1511. Those are what we refer to as self-contained classes. Resource rooms, consultant teachers, integrated co-teach, speech, hearing, vision, etc. We talked about some private school placements in terms of the increase in tuition. We have students who are placed in private schools as well. And you can see all of the additional items that go along with our special needs students. And we are seeing good success with our special needs students in terms of our assessments. That's an area of growth that we'd like to see, but we're doing well. Our art program, see the description at the elementary level, approximately 1 day per week, 40 to 45 minutes. The middle school, the high school, and also the art electives that we are very proud of in terms of what our students achieve, as well as what they can take with them to higher education as well as a career. Our music program, very similar to the art program, providing a significant amount of opportunities for kids, and again, not only if they go on to secondary or to post-secondary education, it gives them the background and the foundation for that, but also if they want to choose music as a career, we provide a great background for that as well. Under student support services, you can see some numbers here, but these are the various ways that we support our students. Through counselors, psychologists, social workers, librarians, the Learning Center at the high school, nurses, speech improvement, family support center, parent-child connection. We have intervention services at every level, reading specialists. The Read 180 program is a program that's been instituted at the middle school that assists students who are below level in reading to achieve higher results and get them on grade level before they leave middle school. Math specialists in our schools. Summer school has been reduced over the years. We do have a volunteer summer school, a volunteer program running summer school at this point, but we no longer carry the summer school provisions that we used to in the past because of budget reductions. And then our student support team in response to intervention, we are turning over to the response to intervention model as required by New York State. High school electives, and I believe I've caught most, if not all of them. I may have missed some, but again, an area of significant pride for the high school in terms of what we offer students and what they achieve at these various levels as well. So you can see our business electives with the Finance Academy. Math, sciences, technology, languages other than English, college credit. There are 5 courses for college credit, ELA electives, social studies electives, the emergency medical technician program, and BOCES occupational education, over 20 course offerings for BOCES that we send students to as well. These are our AP courses. Again, extremely proud of what we can offer. Students can achieve college credit through these courses. We are very successful at having our students achieve college credit with these courses as well. Health and PE. You see health at the left side. We're one of the few districts that has health at the elementary level. Look at the middle school level, 10 weeks for grades 6 and 7, and then the opportunities we have at high school as well. You typically don't see opportunities like that at other districts. From a physical education standpoint, I think some great programs, particularly if you look at the lifeguard program. A very unique program that Hamburg offers and something we are very proud on and would like to continue. Athletics. From modified JV to varsity sports, you can see the number of sports that we have, and our participation is high and excellent in here. On an aside, I think it was last month's board meeting, all of our 4 fall sports teams were recognized as teams achieving student academic participation by New York State. So they were achieving at high levels in the sports teams, and I think, did we have 1 state champion as well?
Yeah, girls gymnastics.
Girls gymnastics was the highest in the state in terms of academic achievement for the sports team. Our technology area, in terms of what we have for support, last year we combined the Director of Technology with the Assistant Superintendent from HR. We cut 1 administrative position there, and the Assistant Superintendent for HR now oversees technology. You can see the technicians that we have, only 3 technicians, which is undersized for a district of our size. And you can see the various items that we would put under the technology area in the district. The parts on the right are those contractual programs. When you look at Lotus Notes, that's our email system. School Wires is our website. We have a data warehouse through Greg Davis's office. ASOP is our substitute calling system. We participate in the applicant tracker where candidates can apply online. So significant technology increases in utilization in our district. Extracurricular activities, intramurals and clubs at all 3 levels. Professional development through the South Towns Teacher Center, through Teachers on Special Assignment, and also through BOCES with the Race to the Top. We received a little over $70,000 to use over a 4-year period for our share of Race to the Top funding. Our costs will exceed that probably by 4 times, but when you see the professional development we participate in there is APPR, which is the new performance evaluation system for teachers. Student learning objectives is coming in for next year for our non-core areas for the assessments. We're looking at also the Common Core state standards that we've had training for. So a significant amount of professional development occurring under and required under the Race to the Top provision. Transportation and facilities, we're looking at from transportation to contracted services both with Fisher Bus and Hamburg School Car. Fisher Bus typically has our large and local contracts. Hamburg School Car has our smaller and more distant contracts and typically take 2 to 3 students, maybe less, to their certain locations. Under facilities, a great job with a small crew in terms of looking at maintenance, custodial cleaners and laborers, keeping our district well-maintained, even in light of budget reductions over the past few years. Administration central office, superintendent, 2 assistant superintendents, 1 in curriculum instruction assessment, the other in human resources and technology, 2 directors at the central office level, administrative services and student services, and we also have a coordinator of public relations that is responsible for public relations in the print shop as well. At the high school, principal, 2 assistant principals, the athletic director is housed at the high school. That's kind of a cross between a position here as well as a central office position. Middle school has a principal and an assistant, and the elementary schools have we have 4 buildings, 1 principal at each building, and there is also an assistant principal at Union Pleasant. We've gone through all of what you've seen, and that's the Hamburg program, and I apologize for the quickness, but this is what is required. I went through the program and showed you what we offer. These are the requirements under the Regents regulations. This is 100 Part 3 from the Regents, and this is K through 6. And so you can see the program that's required for the district students to participate in. Slightly different from the program that we offer, and in Hamburg we significantly exceed the requirements at the state level. These are the requirements for grades 7 and 8. And I know it's a little bit difficult for you to see in the back. We will post this PowerPoint online. But you can see 2 units of studies for ELA, social studies the same thing, science and math the same thing. And then you get into some more of the electives, technology, health, visual art, music, PE, library, foreign language guidance, and the acceleration program that we have. So again, that's the requirements from an SED standpoint. And at the high school level as well, for the Regents High School diploma, 22 credits in passing 5 Regents exams. And so you can see the ELA, social studies, science, math, etc., the requirements in terms of the units of study. Think back to what we offer, and again, significantly above what the units of studies are required. Continuing on, other mandated programs and services, special education, speech and language, LEP or limited English proficient services, academic intervention services, response to intervention, grade 3 through 8 for all students who score below the state. That's our academic intervention piece. And in grades 9 through 12, anyone who scores below the designated performance level for ELA, math, social studies, and science assessments, that is required intervention that they receive on an annual basis until they are achieve at a point where they can no longer be required to have those services provided. So as we move on, you're going to see some of the reductions in program that are on the table at this point for potential reduction. You'll see a draft 1 proposal and a draft 2 proposal. I want you to know that these are proposed changes at this point. Nothing has been decided, nothing has been determined. At some levels, it's a little bit easier. When we're projecting numbers at the elementary school, it's a little bit easier to see where we are with class size and what potential reductions can be made. It becomes more difficult as you get to the middle school, where you see some numbers and a potential reduction of some teams based on enrollment to see if we can continue that through the next couple of years. At the high school, it becomes even more difficult because of course selection, because of elective election, and because of where we stand in terms of the high school reductions. So I want you to keep in mind again that these are proposed reductions at this point. A lot of dialogue has to take place, a lot of decisions have to be made before any of these pieces must go into effect. And here is some of the way we're going to look at assisting ourselves in making these decisions. There are some areas that can be reduced because it's enrollment driven. And so it will have no impact on program. It may slightly increase the enrollment in particular classes, slightly increase the average class size, but the program remains. There are other changes driven by program and service needs, whether this is a special education service in need, or whether it's some other area that we need to either maintain or perhaps reduce because of the needs of our students. We will also look at, and we do have impact statements as you go through this, looking at the degree of impact a program or service reduction has on students, and we're trying to measure that. Difficult to measure in some cases, and we're trying our best in terms of looking at the criteria we have and putting an objective standpoint on those reductions. We're looking at the impact of the property tax cap and the levy, and what happens if we exceed the levy or if we maintain the levy at the cap. We're receiving input from the Board of Education, from the Leadership Forum, which is the union leadership throughout the district, and the Budget Ambassador deliberations. And again, we're required to perform specific services under the Race to the Top or the New York State reform agenda. Continuing with that, we've looked at, for Part 2, or for the Draft 2 reductions, what was the budget gap after the Draft 1 reductions? And again, there are certain initiatives and things going on in the district from a negotiation standpoint that will mean numbers will change on a regular basis if contracts are settled as we move forward. We'll look at the impact on future budgets, what New York State is going to be looking at over the next couple of years, whether the state aid increases will continue, or whether we'll see a potential decline in state aid over the future. We have to make some good projections of that. And then looking at the 2013-14 budget and really making sure that we have foresight into what's going to take place in 2014 so that we can try to avoid some of the potential reductions that we're looking at for this year. So here's Draft 1 of the budget modifications, approximately $1.694 million in spending reductions. And here's what we're looking at. The first thing we did was we took a look at the BOCES budget. We participate in a certification service that provides the district as well as new teachers an opportunity to have more input with New York State, question New York State a little bit more, and get information back quicker from the teaching certification service in New York State. We're looking at a savings here of $6,000, and we don't see the certification issues coming forth as they used to come forth. We're looking at a Video Project Connect service where we're paying a maintenance fee of $1,200. It's not necessary longer. We participate in the Safety Risk Program where we have an individual in the district 1 day a week. We're going to reduce that to 1/2 day a week and save approximately $9,000. The printing services at BOCES that we can take over and we're not utilizing to the maximum, a savings of $1,500. Behavior management consultant, we're again reducing the time that individual's in the district from a 1.0 to a 0.5, a savings of about $11,500. And again, we're looking at our BOCES services from a special education standpoint to see if there's any students that we can bring back to the district, reduce our costs with BOCES, educate our students locally, and save some BOCES funding from there. We don't know where that is at this point, but that is under review. As we move through and now look at where we're at from a district personnel standpoint. From a facilities, we're looking at a reduction at Draft 1 for 2 cleaners, 1 laborer, and 1 maintenance mechanic. So a reduction of 4.0 FTE, and FTE is a terminology we use. It's a full-time equivalent. We have employees that participate anywhere from say a 0.2, which is the equivalent of 1 day a week or 1 class per day, up to a 1.0 or a full-time, which is 5 days per week. If in a teaching session, it's a full-time employee that's teaching all day. In the high school, that would be 5 classes, middle school 5 classes, etc. So those are people that we're talking about. The reason I classify it as a full-time equivalent is because you may see a half-time position reduced at some point, and we have to equate that to funding. So that's why it's looked at from that perspective. You can see the impact that does have. At our last board meeting, we were addressed on the facilities issue, and really quite well in terms of the requirements of our facilities department and what they're really required to do, even with the increase in square footage that we've added on over the years from additional facilities. When we're looking at staffing, and after these slides, I'll give you a kind of an outlook of where we are with class size at the various levels. But we're looking at a reduction of 10 teachers at the elementary level. This is equivalent to 8.5 teachers, classroom teachers, and then about 1.5 teachers in art, physical education, and music. And again, the reason you'll see the reductions in art, physical education, and music is because with a reduction of 8 classes, we're not going to have the participation in those 3 areas that we typically would have with the 8 classes there. At the middle school, we're looking at a reduction of 3 teachers. As I said before, we do have an influx of students going from 5th to 6th grade, so we are increasing a grade 6 teacher. We're moving from 11 teachers to 12. We are reducing one full team, and a team is social studies, math, science, and ELA or English. One full team is being eliminated from the middle school. They will move to either a split team model or three teams at one level and 2 teams at the other level. That hasn't been determined yet. The staffing of teacher aides, we're looking at a 4.0 FTE or 4 teacher aide, the equivalent of a 4 teacher aide reduction. And again, keep in mind that what happens when we reduce teacher aides in some other areas is we have a number of part-time individuals. And so when you're seeing here a 4.0 FTE equivalent, that may mean 6 individuals will be reduced because they're less than full-time status. The clerical district-wide reductions at this point are 6 clerical positions being reduced at this point. That will require a reconfiguration of how we do our office duties and schedules. Fortunately, 3 of those positions are being reduced through retirements. So the impact is a reduction of 3 current staff at that level. At the high school, and this is getting more specific, originally we didn't have the specifics at the high school. Originally we would put up 5 teachers reduction at the high school level. In terms of looking at the reductions, again, this is a proposal at this point that will require further discussion. Of 1 teacher in Spanish, and again you can see the impact, reduction of AP Spanish level 5, reduction of advanced Spanish 4, and looking at, again, combining sections there. So trying to minimize the impact of combining sections, trying to offer kids what we still have. But again, as you can see from the AP, the enrollment was 8, 6, and 4. So a relatively minor impact in terms of the number of students. If we have to look at, or if we can look at some independent studies, we will do that at the high school level. 1 teacher reduction in chemistry and labs. And again, the move here is, we don't see a loss in program, move from a 4-day lab cycle to a 6-day lab cycle. And you can see the 4-day lab cycle provides our students about 1,800 hours worth of lab. The requirement is 1,200 hours. Moving to a 6-day cycle will give us that 1,200 hours. It will make students more accountable to get their work in on time and be done. They have to be more proficient in terms of their labs and handing them in. They don't have the additional time to spend on those. We're looking at a reduction of a teacher at the health level, which is the life skills course. That would mean board action in terms of eliminating the requirement of the life skills course. The board put that as a requirement for graduation a few years ago, so that would mean the board would have to act to remove that as a requirement. And we also have 1 teacher reduction in art. And again, a reduction in the number of art classes. This is an area that will be under review to make sure that we can provide art services to students in the various categories that we have. Teachers, when you look at art and music, tend to specialize. We have very good specialized programs going on at both of these levels that we're going to have further review on. And you can see the same thing for music. We want to make sure we're going to continue to offer a quality program for students involved in all of the areas that we're reviewing for the high school. So when you look at these 5 teacher reductions, what you may see in the future is that expanding to maybe 7 areas, maybe 8 areas, so that we'll have less of an impact on a particular area and still be able to offer the programs that we currently have to students. So again, this is under considerable review at this time, and again, your feedback is helpful in these areas as well. Again, further items under draft 1, photographer in central office, extracurricular activities we're looking to reduce by 20,000. We're looking at a consolidation of special education in the building, a self-contained classroom. We believe we can do that because of enrollment numbers. So that's a 1 teacher reduction there. Transportation, as we discussed, that's a continual review, and the savings here to be determined as we continue to look at that. Some options may be to look at the late runs, particularly at the high school and middle school, that occur for after-school activities as well as for sports. And we're reviewing ridership and the impact of those reductions. These are the last areas for level 1. Assistant Superintendent in Central Office, Mr. Davis is retiring at the end of the year. We're looking at a couple of different things. One would be a title change and reducing the title of that position, which would carry a reduction in salary, as well as sharing of this position with another district in Erie County. Both of those will save at least $50,000 from our estimates. Barb did the bond refunding earlier, $25,000 per year. I think that may increase, Barb. That is probably more like the $50,000 mark at this point because we went through another refunding with that. So that number will be changed to 50. In athletics, we looked at, again, a $50,000 reduction. The decision in terms of the impact of those athletic directions will be determined later. The Alumni Foundation is looking at forming a booster club as an extension of that foundation and perhaps providing funding that can make up that $50,000 through various fundraising activities. So this is this is a summary here in terms of where we are at the elementary level. This is the staffing projections that I talked about earlier. And I apologize for the numbers being a little bit light for you. But what you see on the left-hand side, and this is Armour Elementary, it's the staffing that we have for this year. So you see the teaching staff, the number of teachers under the FTE column, you see the grade level at the far left, you see the enrollment, and then you see the average that is carried through with each of those classes. So for instance, at Armour currently we have 3 kindergarten teachers. The enrollment is 55 students. There's an average class size of 18.3 students per class. We're projecting next year 71 kindergartners for Armour. We're continuing the 3 teachers at that level. We're looking at a class size of about 23.7. Now, if you look at the top of the slide, we are putting our guidelines at K through kindergarten and first grade not to exceed 22. So on average, we don't want to go over 22 at the kindergarten and first grade level. From grades 2 through 5, on average, we don't want to go over 25. That's a slight increase from this year. This year's guidelines for kindergarten not to go over 20, and grades K through 5, or grades 1 through 5, not to go over 24. So you can see a slight increase there. Now, we are not projecting 4.0 teachers at Armour because we're not certain if the kindergartners are going to come. And if you look at the math, if 5 kindergartners don't show up to Armour, then we're at the 22 student per teacher level. So what we're going to do is wait and see what the registration is in Armour come August. If we find that we're at the 71 level or over, then we'll add a staff member. We'll recommend to the Board of Education that we add a teacher to that level to bring the numbers down. But again, because the kindergarten numbers are unpredictable, we don't want to commit to that at this particular point. And you can see the other numbers. Overall, the total average at Armour this year is slightly over 19, and we expect to be over 22 next year, so an increase of about 3 students overall on average at Armour. You can see Boston Valley, and when you look at Boston Valley and Charlotte, a little bit different or significantly different because of the smaller students per grade level. Smaller number of grade level students. And this year, for instance, 40 students enrolled in kindergarten for an average class size of 20. You see 46 at grade 1, 40 at grade 2. Quite different from what you saw at Armour, and even significantly more different than what you're going to see at Union Pleasant. But again, moving from about slightly over 20 students on average overall to about 21 and a half. Charlotte, very similar to Boston Valley. Keep in mind, Charlotte also has the pre-K program housed in their building as well. And those numbers show up at the bottom of the page with 163 students. That is a half-day program offered in the morning and the afternoon. And then Union Pleasant, you can see significantly more students per grade level. Enrollment of almost 700 students this year, projected to go down to 665 next year. So you can see again, part of that enrollment trend, a very slight decline in enrollment in the schools over the course of the year. However, what we do find is once students come to Hamburg, they stay at Hamburg. There is very little transition in and out of Hamburg during the course of a student's career with us. So overall, this year we had 80 and a half teachers at the K through 5 level. Next year we're projecting 72. You can see the class size on average ranging from about 21.8 to 22.3. So a slight increase in class size at the elementary level, offset by about 8.5 classroom teacher reductions, as well as the art, music, and PE to make up the other 1.5 teachers. At the middle school level, here's the enrollment, and you can see in grade 6, 284 students currently, but we have 327 students projected to come in to grade 6 next year. We had 11 teachers teaching grade 6 this year. We're going to move that to 12. We're projected to move that to 12 next year. So you can see an overall increase at the middle school of 40 students. Most of that is due to that increased class size coming in at grade 6. And here is what we're looking at in terms of the middle school reductions. Again, at grade 6, currently we have 11 with about 23 students per class. We're moving to 12, and that will still have 25 students per class on average in those classes. Moving from 3 core teams at grade 7 and 8, and each core team has 4 teachers, so that's 12 teachers per grade level, to a split team, or 2.5 teams at each grade level. And again, that's reduced to about 10 teachers. So that's a reduction of 4 teachers at grade 7 and 8 that's offset by the higher at grade 6, so a reduction of 3 teachers at the middle school level. You see the enrollment at the high school level. You can see this year they had a high freshman class. So enrollment was a significant increase this year to 316. That class is projected to go up to 318. You see 1,196 students there currently. We're projecting 1,169 students for next year, a reduction of about 27 students. So there are some reductions that can be made in the high school because of a lower enrollment. Again, not significant. 27 students isn't significant, but we're going to look for efficiencies in terms of where we can do that. And again, this is the high school staffing. General education of 85.8 teachers. We're projecting that down to about 80.8 teachers. Special education will remain the same at 13.6, moving from 99 to about 94 overall teachers in the high school. The draft 2 budget reductions were modifications that were presented at the last board meeting based on the need to go further to help bridge the gap that currently exists between revenues and expenditures. Again, these items are proposed. This starts to significantly change programs and takes into account where we really don't want to go. So keep in mind that these are proposals on the table. Nothing has been determined, and these are areas that we would like to avoid at this point. Yes, sir?
You said this is in addition to the draft 1?
Yes, this will be in addition to draft 1. From a facility standpoint, we're looking at an additional reduction of three facilities personnel. Grounds crew chief, laundry worker, and labor for a potential savings of $130. This $30,000. This added with the level 1 reductions brings to a 7-person reduction in the facilities department. Pretty significant when you look at the staff that we currently have, as well as the needs that we have for maintenance at the district-wide level. Another 2 reductions in clerical staff. Remember in draft 1 we had 6 reductions, so a total of 8 reduction in clerical staff. Further, reduction of duties, further clarification in terms of where can we consolidate, what schedules may need to be changed in order to make sure that we have coverage at all times in the building. Okay, it's not working. Teacher aides. If you recall, the earlier slide under draft 1 had 6 teacher aides being reduced. This is an additional 3.0 teacher aides or monitors. So if we're looking at the monitors that are in the schools as well. Again, we are continuing to review the needs of special education students. If there's a potential reduction in support for that area that we're providing beyond requirements, then we're taking a look at that as well. Computer aides, we currently have 9 computer aides at our buildings. We're reducing that by 3 under this proposal, and so we would have 1 computer aide per building. Substitute teachers, we're looking for a reduction of 200 days with substitute teachers that would allow us a savings of about $20,000. Again, we have a reduction of classroom teachers here, so we're looking at some savings just based on that, but also we're looking at how we can reconfigure our professional development And instead of pulling teachers out of class and having substitutes fill in for them for that professional development needs, we're looking at a different model to do that. From the middle school, and again, these are areas that we don't want to get into, an additional 4.0 FTE reduction. These would come in the other areas than classrooms. So when we looked at our curriculum, we saw art, technology, family and consumer science, languages other than English, a foreign language program. So all of those areas, we're looking again where we can have efficiencies, where we can potentially increase class size further. We do have a team reduction there, so we can achieve some efficiencies in this without impacting programs significantly. At the high school, we're looking for a reduction potentially of somewhere between 3 and 5 teachers to further reduce at the high school level. Again, when you're looking at impact, I don't know whether we can withstand this impact at the high school level. That is, we're talking about significantly impacting, if we need to go to this level, significantly impacting opportunities for students. We would most likely have to reconfigure our schedule. You'd probably be talking about early release, perhaps earlier release than we normally have for seniors. There are a variety of ways that other districts have explored this. I understand from some conversations that some districts have even looked at a 7-period day at this point. We offer a 9-period day, which gives students a great opportunity to take significant electives, AP courses, participate in music, participate in athletics. So again, an area that we don't want to get into. And lastly, there would be a reduction of an assistant principal position. We would have to reassign positions and duties to cover Union Pleasant, the middle school, and the high school. Again, areas, none of these areas, actually none, whether it's draft 1 or draft 2 that we want to get into, but again, based on the gap, and again, based on where the levy can take us, these have to be considerations at this particular point in time. So that gives you an idea of just the drastic measures that you almost have to take in terms of some of these reductions. What I'd like to do at this point is, if you would take the yellow sheet, and again, I'd like to have a discussion at the table. What are your impressions about the information you have? What are your thoughts about the information that's been presented? What questions do you have, and then what feedback do you have? Please take about 5 minutes and talk to the table, and then we'll report out again. Thank you.